Welcome back, anatomy students. Today we start investigating how our body keeps us healthy. So the circulatory system, the lymphatic system, and the immune system all work very closely together. Today we are just going to take a quick peek at the lymphatic system. As with any chapter and any system, the goal of anatomy and physiology is to be able to identify the structures that are within the system, so the different organs, the different vessels, and also describe the function of the system. So that's a pretty typical set of objectives for every chapter that we do. So first we're going to talk about the functions, and then we'll talk about the structures. And as you talk about the function of the structure, you're really talking about the functions of the whole system, right? Because the structures are what does the work. So looking at what the lymphatic system does for our body. One, it's working closely with the circulatory system and the immune system. So it's transporting white blood cells, which we know are part of both the circulatory system and the immune system because they're found within blood. And they're also found within the lymph of the lymphatic system. So it transports white blood cells throughout the body, and their job is to clean up things that don't belong. So they're going to get rid of toxins, bacteria, other foreign particles that shouldn't be there. And then the lymph that is carrying those white blood cells after it has been cleansed will return to the blood supply, and it will become part of the blood volume once again, as it is plasma, and that helps keep our blood volume up. The lymphatic system is made up of various lymph vessels and organs or tissues. So the lymph vessels are like capillaries. They run right alongside, or you could say they're parallel to the blood vessels, capillaries as well. So plasma will leak from vessels from the blood capillaries, and it will be returned through the capillaries of the lymphatic system. There's also, we'll identify 5 specific structures in the lymph system. One, you have your lymph nodes, which are scattered all throughout the body. Quite often we check the ones that are in the groins, in the abdomen, in the armpits, and in our necks. So when you go to the doctor's office, they palpate your neck to see if you have swollen glands, and that would indicate there's a collection of bacteria there, and so that indicates infection. The thymus gland, which overlays the heart, it kind of, when you do a dissection, I think it looks like it's a little ski cap on top of the heart. And then the spleen over here on the left-hand side, when you do the dissection, I think it looks like a liver fluke that is coming in from the side of a giant one, coming in from the side of your body. And then you have the tonsils in your throat, and the Peyer's patches, which are in your intestines. And these tonsils and Peyer's patches are also called MALT, which is mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue. Okay, we say one of the main functions of the lymphatic system is to return leaked plasma to the blood supply, or to return lymph to the blood supply. So you need to have a good idea of what lymph is. So lymph comes from the Latin meaning clear water. It is derived from interstitial fluid. So what that is that's like outside of all of your tissue cells, there's fluid that bathe it. And in that fluid, we also have white blood cells. So it's similar to plasma, as that's probably where it initiated, right? It leaks from the blood supply, and that includes white blood cells. So white blood cells have the ability to diapedese, get out of the blood supply. So you have this leaked plasma that is bathing all of the tissues, and then that once it returns to the lymph vessels, it's called lymph. So it's basically plasma minus the red cells, and it does include proteins and white blood cells. So that is going to make its way back into the lymphatic system in a one-way direction. So you have capillaries of the blood supply here in red or purple, and you have the capillaries of the lymph in green. So you can see they're really intertwined, so it's easy for fluid to get from one compartment to the other. So you have a one-way system flowing toward the heart, and then it will go into one of 2 ducts that is coming up on the next slide, I believe. So the larger lymph vessels you might just refer to as lymphatics. So you'll hear that that word instead of lymph vessels. So you have a one-way flow back to the heart so that the plasma can get back into the blood supply. There are two ducts that it returns through. You have this thoracic duct. It's like 16 inches long, going through the midline of the body. And then you have the right duct, which is over on the right side. So this right lymphatic duct drains the lymph from the right arms, the right side of the head, the thorax, and every other part of our body goes through this larger vessel or this larger duct system, and that's the thoracic. So here's some lymph nodes you can see. They often occur in clumps or clusters like grapes. They have white blood cells, and those white blood cells then can go through phagocytosis and engulf and get rid of any foreign materials, bacteria, tumor cells, toxins, things like that. So as the lymph passes through the lymph nodes, then the lymph nodes would kind of filter that fluid to get rid of any foreign materials. The other main organs of the lymphatic system are the spleen and the thymus gland. So we talked about the spleen a little bit already. It's over here on the left-hand side. So it has lots of white blood cells as well, lymphocytes that are going to get rid of bacteria, viruses, and other debris. They also destroy old, like 120-day-old, right? Red blood cells, and then products from that, like hemoglobin, bilirubin, will be returned to the liver. The thymus gland, this piece over top of the heart, it produces hormones. Their job is to mature T cells. So T cells are one of your lymphocytes. So the thymus gland is directly related to programming your T cells to identify foreign viruses that don't belong. So finally we have malt, and it's not a chocolate shake. Mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue. Ooh, that's a mouthful, isn't it? So basically this is found where you have mucous membranes. So it basically protects your upper respiratory system, your digestive system from particles that don't belong. So you have your tonsils in your throat here. If you've ever had an overly infected tonsil, you probably had tonsillectomy, you had them removed. They do those less and less these days because we understand the importance of tonsils, but it was pretty regular practice when I was a kid that you got your tonsils out when you were like 5 or 6. So tonsils, they are one of your malt or lymphatic tissues, and then they're going to remove bacteria and other pathogens. Pathogens are disease-causing organisms that enter the throat. And Peyer's patches are found in your intestine. So when we eat food, there's probably a lot of foreign bodies in the food that we're eating, and thank goodness we have the Peyer's patches, which will get rid of those bacteria before they penetrate our intestinal wall and cause further problems, because you definitely don't want that infection getting into your blood supply, right? So that's all I have for the lymphatic system. We don't spend really a whole lot of time on this. We spend a lot of time on the immune system. Remember, you should be able to identify the structure and functions. So the structures, you have the lymphatic vessels, and then 5 other organs we identified: lymph nodes, tonsils, thymus gland, spleen, and Peyer's patches. So I started at the top and I worked my way down. And then describing the functions. So they circulate white blood cells, they transport lymph back to the blood supply, and they clean the lymph of any bacteria, viruses, foreign bodies that don't belong. All right. Thanks for listening.